You're a free man.
If you go back inside.
I'm coming!
Welcome to Recap King. In this video, we will explain The Informer. This movie tells the story of an ex-convict and former special operations soldier who uses his covert skills to take down the most powerful crime boss in New York. When a sting results in the death of an undercover cop, he suddenly finds himself caught in the crossfire between the mob and the FBI. Can he get out of such a difficult situation? Let's find out in The Informer. The Informer tells the story of a former soldier named Pete Koslow who now works as an FBI informant. After successfully infiltrating a Polish crime organization and disguised as a drug dealer, Pete intends to get evidence to indict the crime organization's boss and drug lord named Ryszard Klemek. He then arranged a plan with his handler at the FBI, Special Agent Erica Wilcox, to ambush Klemek along with evidence of a large amount of drugs that he would smuggle through the Polish consulate. During his action, Pete was equipped with a covert listening device so that the FBI could find out everything that was happening around him. The next day, Pete and Stasek, who was Klemek's trusted person, immediately took the drugs hidden in the bag and brought them to Klemek's presence. On the other hand, Erica and the FBI troops had prepared to carry out the ambush mission as planned. However, on the way, Stasek suddenly changed direction and said that he had found a potential buyer and would sell the drugs to him. Pete couldn't do anything to stop Stasek from selling the drugs to someone else for fear that his cover would be exposed. On the other hand, Erica was getting worried and suspicious because Pete's actions were starting to deviate from their plans. When he finally met the buyer, Pete quickly concluded that the man was an undercover cop and intended to arrest them. Pete tries to get rid of the man so Stasek doesn't kill him. However, the man got annoyed and showed his badge to everyone, so Stasek killed him right away. On the other hand, Erica, who heard gunshots and found out that the policeman was dead, was finally forced to withdraw all her troops from the ambush mission and leave Pete. Pete is then brought before Klemek, where Klemek instead accuses him of messing things up. Because he has killed a policeman, Klemek's drug business is in danger of being destroyed and Pete must be held responsible by going to prison and running his drug business in prison. At first Pete refused because he was not the one who had killed the policeman, but Klemek threatens to kill his wife and daughter if he disobeys his orders. In the end, Pete couldn't help but obey Klemek's orders. Meanwhile, Stasek and his men threw the policeman's body into the river. Not long after, Pete meets with Erica and her boss, Keith Montgomery, at a secret place, where Erica tells him that he will remain an FBI informant in prison to catch Klemek's drug ring. In return, Pete would be released immediately if he could obtain substantial information and evidence about Klemek's drug ring in prison. The FBI couldn't wait to send the criminal kingpin to jail. Pete was very upset that the FBI had joined in throwing him in prison to get information about the Klemek drug network. But Keith told him to start thinking about his family because Pete couldn't get away with this. On the other hand, Detective Edward Grenz of the NYPD begins to investigate the murder of his men posing as drug buyers and suspect the Polish mafia. Edward then returned to the crime scene and investigated the CCTV camera footage which showed Pete's figure in the vicinity of the scene. Edward immediately asked his men to find out about Pete. After learning about Pete's background, he assumes that Pete is the one who killed his men. He immediately issued a warrant for Pete's arrest for the murder of an undercover police officer on a mission. After Pete is arrested, Edward then goes to Erica and Keith to learn that Pete is now working as an FBI informant. He assumes that the FBI purposely put Pete in prison to investigate something related to the murder of his men. Even so, neither Erica nor Keith divulge any further about their plan to catch the drug lord Klemek to Edward and deny that they knew about the murder of his men. So Edward decided to find out for himself because he was determined to uncover who was behind the murder of his men. Inside the prison, Pete was immediately greeted by members of the Klemek drug network who would help him distribute drugs in prison. Even so, Pete continues to be watched by a prison warden named Sluit who has suspected his movements from the beginning of his imprisonment. The next day, Pete began distributing his drugs from one prisoner to another in the most secret way possible not to be discovered by the prison guards. Apparently that day sales increased rapidly, so they got a sizable profit. On the other hand, Edward visits Pete's wife, Sophia, to look for clues about the case involving Pete. Even though he insists that he can help Pete get out of prison because he is sure that Pete isn't the killer, Sophia still chooses not to say anything to the cop because Pete has warned her not to trust anyone else. Unable to force Sophia to tell the story, Edward then gave her his business card and asked her to call him whenever she needed help. After that, Edward comes to the prison and tries to communicate with Pete through one of the inmates who is his informant. At the FBI headquarters, Keith orders Erica to kill Pete and stop all their missions to catch Klemek because Edward's ongoing investigation threatens their career at the FBI. If Edward and the NYPD find out that they know exactly who is behind the murder of the police officer on duty, then both of them are in danger of being thrown in jail. Meanwhile, in prison, Pete is confronted by a gang leader named Phelps, who controls the drug trade inside the prison. Phelps thought that Pete had been presumptuous of selling drugs in his area. Phelps and his men, assisted by the corrupt Sluit, then torture Pete and intend to kill him. Pete finally reveals that he is an undercover FBI informant to uncover Clemek's drug ring. After hearing Pete's confession, Phelps immediately orders his men to stop torturing him. Pete then asked Phelps for help in investigating anyone involved in Clemek's drug ring, which he immediately agreed to. On the other hand, Erica had already ordered someone to kill Pete in prison, but Pete, already anticipating every attack, always kept a knife nearby for self-defense. After receiving information about the Klemek drug network from Phelps, Pete immediately contacted Erica so that he would be released from prison immediately. However, after being ordered by Keith to stop the mission to capture Klemek and kill Pete, Erica did not respond. With the FBI now unable to help him, Pete then reaches out to Edward and reveals everything to the cop. He also called Sophia and asked his wife to give Edward an audio recording of his conversation with Erica that he had recorded in anticipation of times like this, so that the police could use it as evidence. Elsewhere, after learning that Pete has messed up in prison and is cooperating with Phelps, Klemek then orders Stasek and his men to kill Pete's wife and daughter. Seeing the thugs in front of her house, Sophia rushed to call Edward and ask for help. Stasek immediately locks Sophia and her daughter in a room, while one of his men pours gasoline all over the house, where they plan to burn them alive. However, after receiving a call from Sophia, Edward immediately came and managed to kill Stasek's men. While trying to save Sophia and her daughter upstairs, Edward was shot in the leg, forcing him to escape quickly. When Stasek descends while holding Pete's daughter hostage and intends to kill Edward, Sophia, who manages to free herself, shoots him immediately, causing him to fall down the stairs. Edward finally manages to kill him. Not only Sophia and her daughter, Klemek also ordered his men to kill Pete in prison. When Pete entered the room, one of Phelps' men signaled to him that he would be killed immediately. Pete immediately rushed to his bed and found that his knife was missing. Shortly after that, Pete is attacked and nearly killed by a Polish gangster, but he finally manages to subdue his attacker. When the guards discovered this, Pete was immediately targeted. In the act of desperation, Pete is forced to take Sluit hostage and use him as a shield to escape from the prison guards. He then knocked Sluit unconscious and took him to the top of the prison tower, where there were many pipes and gas cylinders, and hid there. Before long, Keith and the FBI had surrounded the prison to kill Pete. The troops had taken their positions and prepared to shoot Pete at Keith's command. On the other hand, using his past experience as a United States Special Forces sniper, Pete plans to escape from prison. He moved the gas cylinder to a point where it would be easier for him to escape. After that, he changed clothes with Sluit and strategically placed the CO2 tank behind them. He then wakes Sluit and tries to make it look like the man is holding him hostage, causing the sniper to target Sluit instead of him. When the sniper was about to shoot, Pete slightly changed position so that the bullet missed and shot the gas cylinder and caused a big explosion. Erica arrived at the police station shortly after the explosion. When Pete was about to be picked up by an ambulance, Erica, knowing that the man wearing prison warden's clothes was Pete, immediately got into the same ambulance. Erica turns out to want to help Pete and secretly hands the gun over to him, so he can catch everyone in the ambulance and pretend to hurt Erica, then run away. Moments later, Pete intended to meet Sophia and his daughter. Still, he immediately realized that many undercover cops around them would arrest him as soon as he appeared. He finally realized that for the time being, he had to go as far as possible and not be able to see his wife and daughter for their safety. The film ends by showing Erica and Keith having a conversation on the boat. The NYPD finally arrests Keith after Erica uses wiretaps to record his words, which openly ordered Erica to kill Koslow to cover up his actions. Edward and Erica then work together to help Pete get out of all this and protect his family. The film ends.